Okay, so today I'm going to show you how I made my belt for my Nidalee cosplay, and subsequently the bones and the spear, which is behind me. I don't feel like grabbing, so I'll put like a little picture of me doing stuff with it here. This was relative. It took a couple of days because I needed to prime these, seal them, whatever. I don't know, put a layer of glue on them, whatever you want to call it, before I could paint them, and then painting in between took some time. And I just used regular acrylic paints and oil paints. I don't really show a lot of the painting process because I like to assume that a lot of you guys have that down pat. And yes, today I am wearing my teenage boy cosplay. So, if you'd like to see how I made these, then keep watching. This is probably going to be one of the last of my holiday cosplays, unfortunately. Everything didn't get here in time. But other than that, I hope y'all are right. I'm really bad at transitions. Okay, so I started out with my pattern, which I found online. If I can find the link again, I will put it in the description, but honestly, like, my memory is shot at this point. This year's been a lot. This is technically supposed to be like one side each, but I decided to make this as one big side because, as Sharpay once said, "Don't you see that bigger is better and better is bigger? A little bit is never enough." That being said, I have developed an affinity for making like oversized and large props, so hopefully going into the new year I'll be doing a lot more like World of Warcraft and League of Legends type cosplays because they've got a lot of like larger than life things. Anyways, I traced that pattern onto, or the basic shape onto, some EVA foam floor mats that you can get at Harbor Freight for a little less than $10, and I cut all of those pieces out at about a 45-degree angle, so that way whenever I glued them together they would kind of make a point at the edges, if that makes any sense. And I did that for about 4 pieces. You would technically, like I said, if you wanted to make it more screen accurate or game accurate, you would just do half of the pattern, and so you would really only need like, it would be 2 of each, but the way that it's science and stuff, I don't know. So if you're a true fan of mine, you've already seen me do this technique, but all I'm doing is taking some chalk and going over all of the pattern and then just kind of like mashing it down. I take the chalk again and I kind of like just fill in some of the blanks that it didn't get, like where tape was or anything like that. And it's not completely even, but also I'm not going to a convention. I'm not entering a competition. Then I just take my box cutter and I go over all of those lines, not all the way through, maybe like 25% or 50% of the way through. And what this is going to do is create some grooves in the EVA foam. After I create all of these little grooves, then I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to like blow it, or well, I'm going to take the heat gun and like run it over. Or it's not a vacuum though, but like, just like, I guess I am gonna blow it. I'm gonna like put it over the thing and it's going to heat it up and separate all of the lines that I just made. You can kind of see that happening here. It was kind of hard to get in camera because my heat gun was like, the cord isn't very long, but as it does that, it sort of collapses the cells within the foam, and that opens up all of those lines. The more heat that you add, the bigger lines that you're going to get. After that, I flipped it over and I kind of made like a groove within it. I cut 2 lines at a 45-degree angle and took that out just so that I could fold it over and glue it to itself. And so it would give that bend that's in the spear. Spear is the word that I'm looking for. And I let that sit for a little while. I also applied glue to both sides and let them dry for about 5 minutes and stuck it together, and it worked absolutely fine. I don't show me painting the spear here, but I've done it in another video before. I'll link that at the top. All I did was add some gray paint, and then on top of that add some metallic gilding wax. And then for the PVC pipe, I just cut a hole for it. And to make the bones, I use the same technique that you would make if you wanted to make your own pattern for really anything that's kind of like big or bulky, like horns or even a certain prop if you want a certain shape. Foil, like aluminum foil, is really, really good for making some of those rounded shapes and getting it to a size that you want. You can kind of mess around with it and even get more jagged shapes. It wasn't quite as big as I wanted it, so I add some plastic bags and paper towels to it to get it a little bit bigger. But then on top of that, I just put some masking tape and then took a Sharpie and marked out the pattern that I was going to use for these teeth. I've seen people use insulation foam for these and just file it down. I didn't want to do all of that. I wasn't going to spend any more money. I just wanted to make this out of products that I already had at my house. And I just labeled it and put registration marks. And I wanted two different sizes, so I made lines for like a longer one and then for a shorter one so that I could make sure that I had the longer ones for the spear itself and then the shorter ones for my belt. I did actually scan these into my computer like I do with all of my patterns. Am I going to upload it? I have no idea. It really just depends on how lazy I feel that day. But you know, you can also, this is a good way of making your own patterns and maybe making like some additional income on your Etsy or anything if you can make something that other people might find useful. These horns might be used, or they're not horns, they're bones, I guess, but like these might be used for horns or whatever, you know, I don't care, might upload it. I put these together with some 5mm EVA foam, and then for the tops I actually just used some spare floor mats that I had and cut circles out of it and just glued that on. I had to make a little bit of an assembly line because there were so many pieces for so many horns that I had to make, but I also didn't show here that I covered them in a couple of layers of it was like a 1 part white glue to 1 part water sort of mixture. I don't know, it wasn't really 1 part, it was more like 1 part to like a quarter of a part. I spent so long dremeling these so that they would be smooth, which you'll see in the next clip, that I like my Dremel gave out on me and I had to go buy a new one. But it's okay. I'd had that Dremel for years, I guess, so it's fine. I won't complain too much. Gluing these together took a little bit of time. It took me about 3 days in total just to make all of the little bones that I needed, which honestly, y'all, like I could have been doing other stuff. I could have been, well, I mean, everything's closed right now, but hypothetically, if everything was open, I could have been doing stuff. And so I really recommend, like, just treat yourself kindly. I wasn't crunching for a con or anything. And here you can kind of see the difference between them once I had dremeled them. One is really smooth and looks more, you know, like one product, and the other one is still really rough and jagged. So spend some time dremeling. And then I just painted it using some cheap what's that stuff called, paint, acrylic paint. I just used a brush. I don't have an airbrush or anything. Using a hand brush is absolutely fine, y'all. You don't need an airbrush, or I mean, if that's something you think you need. I also took my soldering iron and like soldered a line through the top, and that's where I placed my embroidery floss, or is it called string? I think it's called embroidery floss. You know, like this stuff you use to embroider stuff. That's the green little string that I use to attach it to everything. And honestly, it was really, really easy to make these. They just took a little bit of time. I took some oil paints to add some details on the sides and the top, which I didn't record, but you guys are not idiots, and I feel like this video is unnecessarily long as it is. This got sealed with acrylic sealer. To make like her flaps, all I did was make a pattern out of some bikini that I never got to wear this year. As you can see, I ordered takeout a lot. They wrote my name on the bag and put hearts around it. I worked there, actually, that was a lie. And then to make the belt, I took some 5mm EVA foam and some fur. Whenever you cut out fur, make sure you don't use scissors. You just want to use a box cutter on the back of the fur so that you don't make it all jagged and weird looking. And I just hot glued that on. I added about 5 to 6 inches. Oh gosh, looking at memes. Sorry guys. You know me. I had about 5 to 6 inches to the circumference of the, I don't know, to the length of the belt, just so that there would be a little bit of extra room for me to add the Velcro on. And then for the Velcro, I just hot glued that on as well. It really did not take very long. The only thing I had to do was wait for the glue to dry in between like gluing this down sessions because I didn't want to lift up what was previously glued down. I brushed it out using a pet fur brush so that it was nice and smooth, because it got a little messed up and a little roughed up after all of that, which was pretty nice. And with the Velcro, I actually got like, I don't know, a bunch of it from a thrift store for pretty cheap. So Velcro is one of the fastest ways that you can use to attach your props. I will say though that whenever you do things like Velcro, if you're doing armor, you really want to make sure that you reinforce it with buckles or something else so that it doesn't slide or fall, especially at a con throughout the day.